A significant threat of severe weather is going to be coming to the United States tomorrow, but it's a little bit more complicated of a setup than usual. Hello everybody, my name is Davis and welcome back to another video, and today we are here for another severe weather forecast. It's been over a month, I'm sorry, but you know it's November, there's not a lot happening until now. Tomorrow, we have a marginal risk of severe weather extending all the way from Lincoln, Illinois, back down to Clarksville, Tennessee. This marginal risk includes over 7 million people. Now, typically, this is already somewhat out of the ordinary for the month of November, but this is also associated with a 2% tornado probability. Now, I have some gripes with this, but the bigger issue I have is with the NATOcast AI forecasting tool. This is something that we don't typically rely on whenever forecasting for big severe weather events, but it is kind of fun to look at for some of the smaller ones like what we're facing tomorrow, the more conditional tornado risks. It's thrown out a 5% tornado probability across portions of extreme southeast Illinois, extreme southwest Indiana, and extreme northwestern Kentucky. And I just think this is ridiculous, and we're going to talk about why later, but before we do, it's important to make sure that you guys are clicking that like and subscribe button down below, and taking a look at the radar for tomorrow's severe weather event. Obviously, we're not going to be looking at anything too extreme for the month of November in terms of storm coverage. We're going to be looking at a lot of rain throughout the day. Now, things do get somewhat intense throughout the late evening time hours. We go to 6, 7 p.m., no joke intended. We're looking at discrete supercells with the capabilities of producing tornadoes across portions of southwestern Indiana and far northwest Kentucky. Now, this is one of the reasons that I have a huge gripe with our tomorrow's 5% tornado risk from NATOcast, and even a little bit with the 2% from the SPC, is because this is not even close to being a fully discrete storm mode. Again, I said discrete, really I meant semi-discrete, and it's mostly linear through southern Indiana. We're really not going to have any remnant tornado threat that far north. Now, again, there is the very, very conditional chance for a couple of tornadoes down into portions of western Kentucky. I just don't think it's super likely with this storm mode. Again, it's semi-discrete at best, and really those thunderstorms don't look too intense on the HRRR. Now, the environment is actually decently supportive of a tornado threat, according to the HRRR. We've got nearly 400 0-to-1 SRH, which is considered exceptionally high, along with our wind shear being at 85 knots at the cloud layer. That is also considered extraordinarily high, especially for this time of year. We're looking at good moisture content with dews and temperatures both in the mid to high 60s, with 125 instability within the first 3 kilometers of the atmosphere. Now, if that was the setup, and the Cape wasn't so abysmal, which we're going to get to here in a second, this would be easily a 10% hatch tornado probability. However, the Cape is abysmal. We're looking at just 786 Cape at the surface layer throughout this event, and this sounding in particular is taken from southern Illinois. Now, is it possible to see tornado outbreaks with even just 1,000 instability? Sure it is, but the quicker you get down from that 1,000 number, 900, 800, the quicker those probabilities of a tornado threat begin to decrease. With 786 instability, you're really going to be dependent on storm mergers and that wind shear to carry you. Now again, we do have exceptional wind shear content, but with 786 instability at the surface layer and a terrible storm mode for any exceptional tornado threat, we're probably not going to be looking at too much. Again, it's not impossible. I want to reassure you guys of that over and over again throughout this video. It's absolutely not impossible. In fact, I wouldn't even rule out a decently long tracking tornado if the storm mode can get its act together. But even if it does, it has to overcome the problem of low instability. Again, this is not a setup that we typically end up seeing this time of year. It's so rare to see this much wind shear in the Ohio Valley in November, but it has happened before. One of the most noteworthy examples of this was on November 17th, 2013, where we actually didn't have a setup that was too far away from this. Now, obviously, that setup was far beyond this in terms of intensity, but I'm talking about area just a little bit further north of here. We were looking at a setup with actually high shear, low cape, similar to what we're looking at now. Again, the parameters that day were much more extreme, but it is somewhat interesting to note that this event does have a very, very, very high-end analog. Now, this is the HRRR model. if we take a look at the NAM, this is another reason that I don't see any major robust tornado threat coming out of tomorrow. Where are the thunderstorms with the NAM? Oh yeah, they're in Ohio. We have this line of storms that's going to produce damaging wind gusts, but where are those discrete little nasty supercells that we were seeing? Not really anywhere to be seen. Sure, you got these little pop-ups at around 10 p.m., but by this point your instability is going to be even more terrible, and the NAM model is even less forgiving than the HRRR with the instability. 93 surface cape. If we see that, we're not seeing a tornado tomorrow. There is less than a 2% probability. There is less than a 0.0001% probability that we see something out of 93 surface cape in this environment. Wind shear, very good still. SRH, according to the NAM, moderate at best, 215 within the first 3 kilometers of the atmosphere. That is nearly half of what the HRRR was showing. Lapse rates poor at best, 5 to 6. This is not nearly the setup that the HRRR wanted to have for this event, which is why I'm so cautious with giving a forecast too aggressive for this, like NATOcast. How can I justify a 5% tornado probability if we don't even know if we're going to see thunderstorms? Now, yes, this is a conditional tornado risk, and those do exist. Could something happen? Yes. But in my humble opinion, and again, I'm not always right, we know that very well, I don't see any universe where we realistically see a tornado outbreak tomorrow. Now, does 5% tornado probabilities forecast for a tornado outbreak? No, not necessarily, but it's usually indicative of at least 2 to 3 tornadoes of decent track across the area. I don't see that happening tomorrow. Again, is it possible that we see a brief long-tracking tornado in a worst-case scenario? Absolutely. Could we see a couple of weaker tornadoes outside of that? Sure. But we're not seeing consistently intense tornadoes in an environment with less than 100 instability, or again, if we're being generous and going with the HRRR's numbers, 800 instability. It just isn't happening, and it never has, at least in this portion of the country at this time of year. So in conclusion, yes, this is another conditional fall tornado risk, but this one is so different and so confusing. The models have been trending up and down. The SPC's forecast I still find to be a little bit aggressive, but I'm okay with a 2%. 5% I think is too far. Again, this is obviously an AI forecasting tool though, so take this all with a grain of salt. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Before we end off this video, I do want to quickly thank our channel members as always. If you do want to become a member, make sure to do so by clicking the link down in the description. You get access to exclusive content, early access to certain videos, shoutouts at the end of every forecast, custom stickers to use in chat, and more for as little as $4.99. Thinking about adding a $2.99 option soon, we'll find out. But anyway, that's it for today. Thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. We will be live tomorrow if things get too intense. Stay safe.